Well, how's everybody doing out there? Thought I'd do a little video on the old Jeepster Commando. Got it in the garage today. And I'm actually off of work today due to the wonderful Corona. And anyhow, it's going to be short-lived and I have to go back to work. But anyhow, what I've got is, number one, the fuel pump went out on this rig. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just put a fuel pump on it and we'll be good to go. Inside this hole right here, probably can't see very well because my light's not adjusted, but fuel pump mounts right here. Inside there you can actually touch the timing chain. And when I did this partial rebuild on this several years ago, I didn't replace the timing chain and gears, and I stuck my hand in there, my little finger, and touched that timing chain, and it's got all kinds of play in it. And I've been hearing a little bit of noise up front, and I think that chain has got so much play, it's actually slapping against the timing cover itself. So went ahead and took the fan belt, hauled that off. Then I'm going to be pulling the bottom puller, the dampener off of there, and then from there the water pump, and then actually getting into the timing chain cover itself and getting to the timing chain. Something to remember on these old Jeepsters are sometimes there are parts are hard to find, and just like the fuel pump, went to the parts store, didn't list a fuel pump for this, so you always have to ask a little bit of questions. And I just started going back on a late early 70s Buick, and actually looked up, it's a 1960, I think it was a 1968 Buick Skylark, came with the Buick 225 in it. The 225, and then the a little bit later model that replaced the 225 is a 231, Buick 231. That's what this distributor came out of, was I believe it was like a 1976 Apollo, Buick Apollo. And that's what I got this HEI distributor out of. It's on a 231. It will fit into this Buick 225. This is a 1971 model here. So if you're wondering where I got the HEI distributor from, it's from a 1976 Buick Apollo. So I got that out of a salvage yard, actually up towards St. Louis. Went up there, there's a U-Pull-It place up there. Was up visiting some relatives and pulled that out of there when I was up that way. So we're going to get to it and take this apart, and I'll show you what that timing chain and gear looks like once we get in there a little bit further, and show you the rest of it. All right, so I've got just about everything off the front here except the water pump, and got to finish up pulling off this front crankshaft. It's not really a vibration dampener. There's no rubber in there I could feel, unless there, oh yeah, there is actually. There's some in there. Anyhow, vibration dampener, not much of one. And you've got to pull your distributor out to take your timing cover housing off. So if you have points on yours, that's fine. If you got HEI, that's fine. Just do a little mark on your distributor. Number one, you just pull it off. I just put it up close to the number one cylinder, which that's it there. Put a little paint right there. Paint. That way when you put it back together, just makes it a little bit easier. Come over to this side, down here on the housing. Put a little bit of a yellow paint there. That way when you set your distributor in, it saves you a little bit of work, and it just makes it a little bit faster for you. So I'm getting ready to take this here. There's your distributor. Something to remember too, if you guys go to put this HEI distributor in your Jeepster, remember right here on the intake manifold, you have to grind this down. Just, man, not very much. I'm talking, I bet it's not 1/8 of an inch probably, maybe 3/16. Very, very little right there. And that's just for this housing right here to clear as you slide it in there. So one little mod that you're gonna have to do, and also you have to put one of these different style bolts in there as well. That's going to give you the clearance that you need to make that happen. A regular size head will hit there, so it might be a little bit of a pointer for you guys that want to switch over from point to HEI distributor. Alright, so this bolt, your crankshaft bolt, comes out counterclockwise, so don't try to zip it in. Sometimes there is a left hand thread, right hand thread on those, but anyhow. So as you can see, this actually is a vibration dampener. It's just got a little bit of a rubber that runs in there, so it actually serves as one. Not much of a, as you can see, the rubbers come out on the back side, so not much there, but it does serve its purpose. It's not a washer. Alright, so we're getting there. Got a little bit more to go. Alright, so I've got all the bolts out of the timing cover, and also you have to take, there's a couple bolts on each side of your water pump to get those out. Those go all the way through. Right here's a nice little prime point right there. There's a nice little lip. You can get over here, put some pressure on it, and just pry back a little bit on it. And that got a dowel pin there. No other dowel pin there. So anyhow, I'll get this off right quick and I'll show you what's underneath. Alright, so on this side here is where, if you do want to kind of check your timing chain, is right over here on the side of this cover is where your fuel pump goes in and rides on this your camshaft here, your cam lobe for your fuel pump. I was able to stick my finger in there and actually move that timing chain. As you can see, just a tad bit wore out, right? This little cone right here is just keeps your chain. We'll take that off. Make sure you put that back on there, the correct spot. Now it does have a self-tensioner. Over here you've got a little coil spring that fits on a little stud right here, and I'll move this and you can see that is spring loaded right there. Okay, so when the chain is somewhat new, it will take up the slack, but as you can see, all the slack, it's all the way, and you still got this much slack over here. So this chain is definitely wore out. It's as you can see, definitely time for a new one. So now you're going to rip your oil pan gasket as well, just because it's just how it's going to go. And then also you can most likely have some antifreeze dribble down and get into your oil pan. So plan on putting in the new oil pan gasket whenever you do this as well. And get it all cleaned up well. You do have a couple bolts that go through, I think it's this one here, maybe, I can't remember, either this one or this one. It goes through the water jacket on both sides. So make sure you put some sealant on your bolt as you run your bolt through there, and you should be okay on there. So this is going to be your distributor gear. This is what your distributor runs off of, and everything's just about ready to. I'm going to pull this off and take this here off. It's going to slide this off, and then also then once we do that, then both gears and chain will slide all off at one time. All right, so we got the upper timing chain gear and chain and everything off. This is that tensioner I was telling you about. That's it right there. That's what puts a little tension on it until it's completely wore out like mine. Then everything else is pretty much clean the gasket surfaces all up on this, and then it'll be ready to go back together. I'm gonna go ahead and take the oil pan off. Probably won't show you that. Take it off, and we'll take a look in there. Get all that antifreeze out of there, and then that'll be ready. I'll show you the back of the inside of the timing cover here. You've got this little spring right here, okay, and it does rotate in there. All right, now what that does is that pushes on the cam right here. It just puts a little pressure on that. I think it's actually, it really doesn't do anything. It just keeps a little bit of the in play of the cam from moving. So make sure, and this right here, be careful. That little deal right there is important. And I'll show you where that goes. That goes in this little slot right there. So this is what you're going to see, just like this. That's how it lines up in there, okay? So make sure when you put that back together, that little spring is in there. And if it's off like this, it's not going to work, okay? So make sure that that's in there like that, okay? And then you'll be good to go. Let's see what else. Let me show you this on this. Get this bolt out of here. Push down in there. You see that whole deal just comes out of there. So I'll just take it off. Actually, it doesn't even. It just sits right there. So we'll put that over here and get that ready. This is your oil pump right here, guys. This is it. Your distributor goes down in here. Distributor gear runs on the cam. You have a little slot right here inside your oil pump drive that the distributor will slide into, and then turns your oil pump. This is it right here. It's an external oil pump. I might even think about replacing it. I do know, I think Summit has a high output oil pump for this Buick 225. I remember seeing it a couple years ago. I might check into that, and once I have this off of here, might as well maybe upgrade that as well, and it'll be good to go. So don't forget to get your a new seal as well. When you put your new seal in here, make sure you get you a new one. Mine was leaking. I'm sure yours is going to too. Now, I did ask my dad just we bought this Jeep back in 1984. That's how long we've had it. And I had asked him, I said, hey Dad, did you ever put a new timing chain in there? And he said, no. He said, never did. And I haven't either. So this is the original timing chain on this. And it's pretty much wore out. This is it here. You've got it's not a plastic, but it's some type of a heavy duty plastic material, polymer or something like that. And the bottom is steel, top one is not. You have a steel insert, but then the outside is that. The teeth on them are just about pointed. I mean, they're wore out. Chains wore out. Everything on this thing's wore out. So we'll get the new stuff and put it back together and see if we can get this bad boy running again. It's been a while. I've been parked in the garage. Haven't done much to it. I had a little incident with it, and I'll tell you that is right back here. When you're running down the road and you look in the rearview mirror and you think that you saw some smoke coming out the back, and then you look and no smoke, and then driving, everything sounds perfect. You're thinking you're seeing something, see another puff of smoke, and you don't know what it is, you might want to pull over. Because what happened to me is this nice big wheel and axle slides out of the Jeep going down the road. Craziest thing I've ever seen. Wheel comes off, axle slides out, top of the axle hits this part of my Jeep right here. Luckily it didn't do any more damage. It kind of grazed it right here and bumped a little bit harder right here. No dent, a little bit of olive drab paint, be good to go. But as it came out and rolled and smacked the stinking pavement, it bent my axle. So now I'm looking for an axle to get this thing back on the road. I just stuck it back up in there after I put a new bearing on it. I didn't know it was bent. I put a new bearing on it, stuck it back in there and cranked it up and jacked it up on stand and put it in drive, and then your wheel is wobbling. You know you got a problem. So anyhow, actually I'm in touch with a guy now out in Colorado. I think he's got one, so that would be good to go. And put a new one on here, and then that way this thing will be roadworthy again. So anyhow, that was my journey. And on top of that, when you talk your wife into going for a Jeep ride, and she always says, do you think it's going to make it? And you say, yeah, no problem. It's going to be just fine. And then that happens when she's in the Jeep. it might be a little bit harder to take it for a Jeep ride the next time. Just my 2 cents. Alright, so I got the new timing gears and chain on there. As you can see, these gears are 100% steel versus this one up here that was actually made out of that, had that polymer plastic on it. So it's a lot better quality, and then also too, as you can see, no movement on the chain. The slack adjuster is working fine on this side. Big time difference between that chain and the old chain. Actually, I'm surprised it's even running. I'm surprised it didn't jump time on there. Now I've got I've got the timing gear case off, the cover's off. As you can see, it's pretty dirty. I'm going to be cleaning this up. But right here's your oil pump. Makes an external oil pump. You got, was it 2, 3, 6 bolts that hold it on. And that's your oil pump shaft there. That's what the distributor comes down and turns to create your oil pressure. Now, these oil pumps, I couldn't find one, but believe it or not, they have rebuild kits for these. It comes with a new shaft here, which is attached to a gear. Another gear, it comes with your gaskets, and then also these actually have a pressure regulator valve, which is here. It does come with new springs as well. So I'm going to be taking this apart and rebuilding that, and that should go ahead and get that rebuilt. They do, I did check, they do make a high pressure oil pump for this, but you have to modify this pump to actually get it to work correctly. It comes with the new shaft. But it has a drill bit that it comes with, and I'm assuming that you have to drill that hole out to make a little bit bigger hole for a bigger diameter shaft. It was about double the cost. I think it was $56 at O'Reilly's for the high pressure rebuild kit, and then the standard rebuild kit was, I believe, $21. So I did go ahead and pull the oil pump off, or the oil pan off. I went ahead and checked my main bearings, make sure they're good. I did put new main and rod bearings in there when I did a partial rebuild on there when I had the heads redone, and new piston rings and all of that. But those are good shape, and so this here should do just fine. Just a standard rebuild kit on the standard oil pump, and it should be good to go. Alright, so I've got the oil pump apart here, and you can look right here between these two gears as they move. You can see how much wear is there. I know there's supposed to be just a slight clearance there, but that's quite a bit. So as this gear is pushing this oil from this side over to that side, a lot of it's going to be just bypassing right back through. So this pump is definitely due for an overhaul for sure. Now the pressure regulator, which sits here on this, you unscrew this, there's a spring in there. Something to take note is right here, the spring was visible. So as I stick this up in there, you can see my screwdriver, okay? Now that piece is a little piston that comes out. All right, so that piece moves, and tap it here so we can get it out of there. Here it comes. That right there comes out of there. There it is. It's right here. Okay, so the spring sits in there just like that, and this here screws it in. That's where you get your bypass there. Okay, throw it over here. Something to keep in mind now, whether or not it moves, this should be able to rotate in there because of this cavity here. No matter where this is, that oil can get here and then push back on this plunger to relieve that pressure. All right, so just something to keep in mind. I'm going to put it right back into place. I'm going to keep it just like that as I slide it up in there so I can see the spring as it sits inside that little piston there. Okay, so keep that in mind, and when I get the new parts in, I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so I've got my new rebuild kit in for this oil pump here, and just so everybody knows, it's a Mellings part, and it's a K201, and there's also another number on there, 601-1249. Okay, K201. It's a Mellings brand, good company. Makes some really good oil pumps, so highly recommended. All right, so we'll get down to business here. So what we got is we got us a new main drive gear. This is where the distributor goes into that, and also comes with your mate gear that goes in there. Now it also came with a new piston, okay, and new springs. As you see, you have 4 different springs. Okay, this is the original spring right here, and that's the bypass piston there. Okay, so the directions are, you've got 2 different options. Number 1 is to take this spring and lay it next to your springs, kind of lay them out there. You've got 2 different options here. Okay, number 1 is this is the old spring. Keep that over there. This is a new spring, and this is a new spring. Okay, they're just slightly bigger. The reason is because this is a 40 psi relief spring, and this would be a 60 psi relief. So that means once the pressure reaches 40 psi, it would push this piston down and allow that oil to bypass. Okay. Number 2, if you wanted a 60-pound pressure relief spring, then you put this one in there. They're both the same, just 2 different colors. One's a little bit longer for the extra pressure. The other side, it does have a different housing, and it gives directions on this sheet here for the 2 different housings. These I don't need, so I can disregard those. Okay. I'm not going to use the 60 because I don't want a 60 psi. I just want to stick with a 40, and we'll be good to go. So I'm going to put this together, and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so all you have to do is, number 1, you want to make sure your housing is cleaned up very well, the gasket material is removed, and before you do the final assembly, you do want to lube the internals of this up really well. I use engine assembly lube. This is what I use to rebuild engines with. It works really good. Once it gets down into oil, it actually adds a nice protective coating, and it also dissolves within your oil, so you don't have to worry about clogging up your filter. Okay, so you'll lube this up really good. This is going to get slid in just like that. You're going to take your other gear and you're going to drop it in there just like that. Okay, now on the old video I showed you of the old pump, right in here there's a lot of movement. As you can see, there's just very little movement in there in between the 2 gears. That just shows how much wear was in between these 2 items, and that's where you're going to lose your pressure and your volume. Okay, so that's something very important to do. So this pump is really nice to be able to rebuild it, and you're good to go. We'll install the new pressure relief spring, which goes in here. We'll get that lubed up really well, and this goes on. It does gives you a new gasket to go on this as well. Now I want you to look at something on your pump housing right here. As you can see, these little bit of a score marks right here, okay, where the top of these gears will actually kind of bump up against there a little bit. What I'm going to probably do is take some light sandpaper and a nice flat surface and probably slide this on that sandpaper, and what it's going to do is just going to do a slight machine work on this, and will help seal that a little bit better. But we should be good to go. Shouldn't have any issues there, and basically we'll have a rebuilt oil pump. And the reason why they do have a rebuilt oil pump for that is because the actual housing is actually made into the timing cover. Okay, most oil pumps, you take the oil pan off, or runs off the front drive crankshaft or something of that nature, you can replace the whole housing. Well, this does not. So Buick 225, use your mellings, and you'll be good to go. So another item that I'm replacing is the old fuel pump. Got a new one here, and let me give you that part number as well. Just remember, the mellings comes from O'Reilly. That's where I bought it from. Even though it's an independent manufacturer, you can buy it there. But here's the precision fuel pump, M16143. Got that as O'Reilly's as well. It may save you a little homework and little issues of trying to locate one. So we're going to get this thing back together. We got my timing gear in, ready to roll. Went ahead and put my new, just gonna drop that. My new front crankshaft seal in. Got that done. And the old seal was actually, it definitely wasn't a rubber seal. It had a bigger housing with a what they call a rope seal. It was actually kind of like a crankshaft, rear main crankshaft seal, made out of almost like a piece of rope impregnated with some wax. But anyhow, knocked that out. It did have a choice to get that rope or go with a regular rubber oil seal. I went with the rubber seal instead. And we'll get this bad boy back together, get this Jeep up and running. And well, I'm not going to show you the whole install, putting it all together, but we'll show you start it up. So I did get some good news. Man, I found a rear axle for this old Jeep. As you can see, what I was talking about, I had on my passenger side over there, you have to replace the axle shaft, and I was having trouble finding one. Found a guy. He's actually got, how many of these things? He's got one body style like this with the Buick 225 in it. He's got two more bullnose Jeepsters that he's got as well. I was able to get the whole rear Dana 44 axle for next to nothing. I mean, he was awesome. For what I was finding for just the shaft to replace this, I bought the whole axle. And man, that was a great blessing for me. And I'm almost thinking about buying all the all his Jeepsters that he has and just parting them out, because I know there's so many guys out there need some parts. So anyhow, thinking about that, we'll get this bad boy back together and we'll catch you later.